So, this graph was released a few days ago and it shows the higher ranked results and choices regarding operators on offense and defense. It does this by showing for both sides the operator pick rates, as in how often operators are being actually used, and the operator win deltas, which, simplified, is a measure on how strong the operators are and how they're performing. I figured that it would be pretty fun to look at the data on show here, kindly provided every season by the dev team behind Siege, and have a look-see at the anomalies. By anomalies, I'm referring to the operators who have either really low pick rate, low win delta, or really high pick rate or high win delta. Basically, anything that really sticks out. And before anyone asks, the article and graphs will be available in the description for your own viewing pleasure. The operators that will stick out are potentially imbalanced, either in the direction of being underpowered or unfun to play, or vice versa. So, let's get into it then, shall we? This video will be focusing on the attacking side. The operators with the lowest pick rates for the attacking side are Finca and Fuse, which is an interesting case because they are on opposite ends of the spectrum to each other when it comes down to win delta, with Finca winning more often and Fuse less. Starting with Finca, she appears to have a win delta of 2.6% or around there, alongside a pick rate of 6%. Given how her win delta is head and shoulders above every other attacking operator, with the closest to her being Blackbeard, who has a win delta of 1.6%, a whole percentage lower than her, this is a fairly impressive stat, showing that Finca is performing really well. However, this contrasts, interestingly, with her low pick rate of 6%. So, what gives? My assumption here is that Finca is deemed either boring or unfun to play as, or is overlooked in favour of perceived to be more essential operator picks. Both assumptions seem like they could be the case, and in fact it's entirely possible that both are the cause behind her low pick rate. Finca's gadget is extremely simplistic mechanically. You, as the player, push the button, and for a time her team is buffed. Sure, the buff itself is quite complex, affecting a wide range of things in the game, but for the person actually playing Finca, all they're essentially doing is pushing that button and waiting for the cooldown, rinse, repeat. A fairly uninspiring gadget, one might say. The second possibility, that she is often overlooked, could also be the case, as her gadget isn't, at first glance, filling any vital role. It's not hard breaching, it doesn't deal with defender gadgets, doesn't provide additional information. In short, it's pretty unique and doesn't fit into traditional Siege operator archetypes. This could well be enough to turn people away from it and instead pick other operators, despite her excellent win delta. Possibly showing how we don't yet fully understand what makes a good operator when we're choosing what operator to play. The cause behind her very high win delta is possibly the fact that she is only picked in very specific circumstances, which is when a team wants to aggressively rush the objective. In this type of strategy, a mix of soft breaching operators, utility, and Finca work together to bulldoze onto the objective, and this lets Finca's gadget work quite optimally. In a rush strat, as this is called, the team sticks together and overwhelms a single defensive angle, and if the team is together, then Finca has a very easy job figuring out when to use her team-wide buff. This is a very specific strategy, and a lot of the player base has likely encountered it in-game. It's relatively easy to execute, as it's pure aggression essentially, and can cause the other team to panic and mess up. This, therefore, is a committed and therefore very powerful strategy, which can often surprise and overwhelm a standard defensive setup that typically sees a couple of defenders spread out across the map as roamers, leaving 2 or 3 left on site defending against this aggressive 5-player rush. If she's only picked for this strategy, then clearly this gives her an advantage, and likely therefore could be the reason behind her powerful win delta. Moving on from Finca, let's scrutinize Fuse. His win delta clocks in at around -0.8%, with his pick rate being around 2%. So we're looking at an operator who is barely being picked in the higher levels of ranked play on PC, which is despite his win delta actually being fairly average, with it being comparable to Thatcher's own win delta of -0.7%. He's not even the lowest performing attacking operator, with Ying, Capitao and Jackal all performing worse than him, a likely surprise to much of the player base. So, if his performance isn't terrible, why is his pick rate so bad? Well, I believe it likely has something to do with his clunky gadget. A gadget that makes a lot of noise when placed, takes a while to place, and if heard in time, can be shot and destroyed before it finishes deploying its explosive payload. There's a chance that, because of these multiple downsides, Fuse simply doesn't feel fun or effective to use. At lower levels of play, where players aren't as knowledgeable or aware, Fuse can be pretty effective and fun, with multiple kills being possible from just one cluster charge. But at the higher levels where players know that they can shoot the charge, or know the sound of it being placed, maybe this makes people think that Fuse isn't that good a pick, despite the statistical evidence weighing against this opinion. There's also the fact that Fuse cluster charges are best used against specific sites, often sites that have a level above them. This allows a Fuse to avoid using the risky barricaded windows for the gadget, and instead fuse down into the site from above. When used from above, the fuse charge is harder to shoot and destroy quickly, is safer to place, assuming of course that you've dealt with any roamers that might be roaming upstairs, and can hit more of the site, potentially clearing more gadgets and doing more damage. With his cluster charge being far more effective against these downstairs sites, perhaps his pick rate is lower as people are exclusively using him against these downstairs defensive positions. And, as with Finca, perhaps his low pick rate is down to a mix of these possible causes. The last two operator anomalies for the attackers I will cover are both overpicked, with two clear winners on show, Twitch and Ash. Honestly, I'm not surprised at either of these operators being clear favourites in the community for being picked. They both have very flexible gadgets that are effective against a wide range of defensive setups. Twitch can take out mirror windows, electronic gadgets and defensive cameras, and Ash can quickly breach soft walls, windows, floors, ceilings, destroy barbed wire, deployable shields, and other things besides. They both also have excellent rifles, with Twitch having available the powerful F2, a favourite of mine, and of course Ash having the powerful R4C, and even to be honest to some extent the pretty solid G36C as an alternate. So the reasons behind these two operators' high pick rates and performance in actually winning are pretty obvious to see. However, can I just highlight how Ash has a high pick rate that is 20% higher than Twitch, who herself has a pick rate 10% higher than the next closest to his Thermite. Behind Thermite, the rest of the attacking operators kinda clump up, so if they are representing the average pick rate kind of scenario, then Ash is effectively 30% more picked than all but Twitch for the attackers. This is pretty ridiculous, and is probably representative of both how strong she is as an operator and how fun she is. She's 3 speed and so can race around the map, has a gadget that's never going to be useless and is easy to use, and has a rifle that can win most 1v1 engagements. Ignoring the whole Ash head hitbox thing, with Ash, everything is there that you could ever want. In some ways, this could be a problem, as new DLC operators have to actually compete with her. Yeah, good luck there, Ubisoft. Maybe that's why new DLC operators all seem to have weird and imbalanced gimmicks attached to them, like sights that don't belong on a sidearm being on a sidearm? Anyway, I do hope you found this interesting, and my analysis of the Defender operator statistics for Year 3 will be coming up shortly. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.